Welcome to the I Am One podcast, where we chat with Postpartum Support International volunteers to discuss why and how exactly they're supporting the mental health of new families. I'm your host, Danny Giddens. I'm a perinatal mental health certified advocate, a support group leader in my community, and a staff member here at PSI. Hearing one person's story on a podcast changed the trajectory of my life. It was the catalyst to me opening up about my undiagnosed postpartum anxiety, depression, and OCD, processing my own trauma, and realizing that advocacy is my life's work. I'm joined by my co-host, Emily Jankowski-Newton.
It's me. I'm the co-host,
Director of PSI's Climb Out of the Darkness program. We've discovered that there is strength in processing trauma and empowerment in sharing stories.
So that's what we're here to do. Our guests will take us on their journey from pregnancy or adoption through their low on to getting help and finding themselves again. And finally, how they're making a difference today. As I always say, it's the coolest club you didn't want to join, because being a part of PSI means we went through something. And as a result, I've become connected to the coolest, kindest, most fun people that I would have otherwise never had the chance to meet.
One of the most important things that we've learned is that we're not alone. There's something powerful in knowing I am one of many. Whether you're already connected to the perinatal mental health world, looking for ways to support parents and families, or just want to hang out with us in your earbuds, we're so glad you tuned in.
And who knows, maybe we'll hear from you next.
On this very special episode of the I Am One podcast, we're sitting down with Laura KILLGORE, the amazing human and perinatal mental health advocate behind the Blue Dot Project. She'll share with us all about what the Blue Dot Project is and how you can get involved in advocacy, even from the comfort of your own home. Be sure to check out today's show notes for links to the Blue Dot Project, the social media kits for Maternal Mental Health Week, the first week of May, and for the Maternal Mental Health Month, which stretches throughout the entire month of May. And we didn't even ask her to do it, but Laura was happy to share some of her own lived experience. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the I Am One podcast are the speaker's own. Tuning into this podcast is not a replacement for therapy or any other form of professional help. Our discussions cover personal stories of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders and may feel triggering to some listeners. Your number one priority is to take care of yourself. So if you are in need of help, please reach out to the PSI Helpline by calling or texting HELP to 1-800-944-4773 for help in English and in Spanish. At PSI, we want you to know you are not alone, you are not to blame, and with help, you will be well. Okay, let's get on with the podcast. Laura, welcome to the pod. We are thrilled to be sitting down with you today on this very special episode of the I Am One podcast that will air during Maternal Mental Health Week. So we can't wait to hear about all the exciting things that you're involved with. So thanks for being here today.
Yeah.
So Laura, if you would be so kind, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am Laura. I am a mom of one. Her name is Adeline, and she will be 5 June 1st, so almost in a month. And I work for the Policy Center for Maternal Mental Health, which was formerly 2020 Mom. And now I've had the opportunity to transition with the Blue Dot Project over to PSI. So I've got my feet kind of in both of those now, which is super exciting because they both do kind of different things, but all for a similar mission, which is really cool.
Speaking of mission, what is the mission of Maternal Mental Health Week, and when is Maternal Mental Health Week?
Maternal Mental Health Week is the first week of May. So this year it happens to be May 1st through the 7th. I primarily focus on the 1st through the 5th of actual calendar week. And the mission of it is to help raise awareness for maternal mental health. So that's by us pushing out all the unfortunate stats that are out there that are pretty shocking, but at the same time are just a little tiny sliver of what's really out there, the reality that parents are going through, since this is only what's reported. Yeah. And we know that almost nothing's reported because most people aren't speaking up or reaching out, or their providers aren't aware of what to ask for.
Danny, you don't have experience with that, do you?
Or they don't talk about it, so they're undiagnosed. Just
Exactly.
Throwing that out there hypothetically for people
Exactly.
like me.
And then like the other part of the week is just to kind of let awareness around what the blue dot is. So we all know the pink ribbon
Yes.
represents breast cancer. And so the blue dot represents maternal mental health disorders and survivorship in those who unfortunately we've lost to the blue dot. So much like the pink ribbon represents the same thing for breast cancer, the blue dot's for maternal mental health, survivorship, support, and solidarity. So that's kind of what the week comes together around, in hope of not just spreading awareness, but through that awareness, helping end like the stigma and shame around it so that people will talk about it, so that they can get diagnosed, so that they can get the help they need. This is kind of just ground zero, so to speak, of how we can talk about it. That's the first step.
That makes me think about the trajectory of like the pink ribbon and how once upon a time people were like, don't forget to do a breast self-exam, right? I remember like as a kid growing up, all of a sudden everyone was talking about that. And now there are shirts that say like, save the tatas, like fully embracing this culture that they've built. I cannot wait to see us get there. We're building the momentum right now, and I can't wait to see like, I don't know, the land of embracing the blue dot.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's so many possibilities and directions it can go in. And yeah, I feel like we've not even quite even scratched the surface of what the blue dot is. And you know, most people don't know about it.
I have a blue dot sticker on my water bottle from a few years ago. A friend of mine was like, have you heard of the blue dot? And I was like, no, because I was still learning all the things. And that was one of the very first things I ran across, you know, like awareness and part of my healing. And so can you tell us a little bit more about how people participate?
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways people can participate, and really it's as in depth as they want to be. You can make the campaign as elaborate as you want or as simple as you want. That's the nice thing, is it can kind of fit into whatever lifestyle you have or whatever time, which time we usually don't have. As parents, there's no time. So because there's no time, we've made it hopefully as simple as possible. We have a toolkit available where people can just get the images that we're sharing on social. So I guess I should say that the campaign is a social media campaign.
Yes.
And if you follow the Blue Dot Project, especially like Instagram, at the Blue Dot PRJ instead of spelling out project.
We will put a link in the show notes.
Yes. So if you go there, we're going to be pushing out content a few times a day during that week, and you can repost or share, or you can use our toolkit and take content straight from there. We have like the verbiage for the posts as well as images, so you can just grab that.
Super easy.
Okay, what happens if you get busy and then forget and it's like Tuesday? Am I allowed? I realize this is like, we know the answer to this question as I'm saying it, but I'm saying it also for future me who will definitely actually do this. What if it gets to be Tuesday and I go, oh crap, I missed some of Monday's stuff? I'm allowed to share Monday's stuff on Tuesday, right?
You can share Monday's stuff in a year from now, in a week from now. You can share
great.
Just because the campaign technically ends, this is just kind of like momentum to getting it started year round. To be talked about all the time. So there's really not a right way of when to share these things. I think it's really important to continue to share and talk about them after this week, because once the hype fizzles out, then, you know, we don't want to be waiting for another year to talk about these things again. So for us, we're going to be talking about these things all the time. So there's no right or wrong time to post or share a story. One thing that's been really cool to watch is we hope from the Blue Dot Project, our hope is that we can create this community of people, whether that's someone who's not been diagnosed and is just kind of like, what are these thoughts that I'm having, unsure, and then they find the Blue Dot Project and find, oh my goodness, I'm by far not alone. And it's kind of neat because the Blue Dot Project in some ways I see as foundational for people who are starting to come into this world and be a part of maternal mental health, which isn't like a club we all really want to be a part of, but we are in. And now that we're in the club, it's like, now what? Once you kind of climb out of the darkness, once you kind of can see the light again, then then it's usually like, okay, but now what can I do? So with the Blue Dot Project, we're working on some programs so that will help give people empowerment so they can go out into their own communities and help spread awareness. So that's all things that we kind of have in the works that hopefully in the next year, like especially next year, we'll be able to like launch those things, hopefully before MMH week, but if not, next year. Even during the week, not during the week, anytime. I truly believe, and I think a lot of us would agree, that storytelling saves lives. I feel like that is just
100%.
Storytelling saves lives.
Yes.
And so being able to hear, listen, read someone else's story,
For sure.
you never know that ripple effect, like at all. Hearing stories here, I think it's just so cool because we feel like we're not even like a drop in the bucket, right? Like we feel so small in this world. But really one story can totally change the outcome of someone else's trajectory because they've heard that story.
And together, all of our blue dots make a splash.
Yeah.
Totally. Absolutely. That was perfect. And I mean, I know just from, me sharing my own personal story, over time, I've had friends who I haven't connected with in years and years and years. Kind of be like, hey, I saw a few years ago, you posted something about your, what you were going through. Now I have a baby and now I'm thinking I'm having similar experiences. And so it's just been so cool because I'm like, I didn't even think, these are people who 10, 15 years ago that I, had connections with who we just happened to follow each other on social. So it's really neat to know like, oh my gosh, a post I made years ago to my like 200 followers, my close friends actually stuck with someone, and now they're reaching out and being like, hey, what were those resources? What were what was that about? Tell me more. And I've had that on multiple occasions, which is super cool to be like, oh, that's neat. My story is somehow having an effect somewhere, which is pretty darn cool.
Awesome. That's an experience that many of us in the perinatal mental health advocacy world share. I mean, certainly I do too. It's like, oh, I didn't even know that this person even probably even paid attention. They never like or comment on a post or anything. And then it's like out of the blue, I get like a message.
Yeah.
Like you heard me.
And that's happened a bunch of
that time.
Gosh, cool.
Okay, I want to talk for like a hot second about the notion of sharing our stories, because I feel like as someone who tends to get in her own way, I think that when I try to understand the idea of telling my story, I look at it like, okay, I have to tell a linear start to finish. Like first, I was born on a dark and stormy night. I wasn't. It was Memorial Day. It was in the middle of the day. But like how far back do you have to go and what kind of story do you have to tell? And the reality is like you don't even have to give a sequence. You can just say, I think the first time that I talked about it publicly online, it was just like, I didn't realize that postpartum anxiety was a completely different and separate thing that people could deal with. And I know that I can reach out to my doctor. I know how to get the ball rolling on this because I just thought I was like really vigilant.
Hypervigilant.
Which is like a nice adjective to use on former Emily.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also the fear, like for me, what's held me back sometimes from sharing my story, I've never been like super open or personal too much on social, especially lately. There was like this last year and a half, I think I made one post. Like I'm not really that active. And so there's a lot of like fear surrounding that posting, being that vulnerable, even though like we've got a screen dividing us. So I think for people who may not be ready to even themselves have a conversation about it, let alone on such a public way, that's what makes the toolkit so cool, because very little effort, and it's not as like you're not having to pour your heart out or like open these wounds that you're not ready to. You literally can just post a blue dot.
You can share some of the curated posts that you've got in the toolkit.
Yeah. Even if you share it in your story, like it doesn't have to be an actual post if you're not wanting to like keep that on your feed. So there's a lot of ways I think that people can do it to their own like comfort level. It's not a therapy session. Right. You don't need to completely pour your heart out to people if you're not comfortable with that. So as I say, storytelling saves lives. There's also something about it's just as important if you're not feeling comfortable to tell your story. I don't want people to think that that's the takeaway, that you have to open your, everything up to everybody.
Because it doesn't just have to be your story. It can be the story of people who deal with whatever this issue is that we're talking, whatever the stat is that you're sharing from the toolkit, like that's the story today.
Yeah. Right.
That's exactly it. That is a huge part of the story, that it is actually much more common than we think. Many of us feel like we are alone in our experience, and that's just not true. And that is a huge part of the story. So share that part of the story.
Yeah, exactly. Recently, someone had messaged us on social and it's a dad, and he's like fired up. He's amped to do something. So he's joined the Blue Dot Climb team, and he's like, I'm ready. He was so funny. He said something like, my goal is 99,000, 1,000 for each of my problems. Something like that.
I did see that. I was like, wow, that was ambitious. I saw that on the back end of our fundraising platform. I was like, wow, somebody wants to raise $99,000. Let's make this happen.
I know.
Cool.
Like, well, if I can work for a company and make them millions of dollars, why can't I fundraise for an organization that I'm passionate about?
Can we get a private meeting with this gentleman?
Yes. I know. He's like amped, and I'm like just moved by him. I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's not just for
moms.
No.
Partners, support people.
Anybody. And
family members.
I'm not sure what his story is and why he's found this passion, but it's so neat to know that somehow in some way he's been impacted, and now he's feeling empowered or in a space to be able to use his voice. And we use the phrase, where you can find the hashtag use your mom voice. So it's just neat to see that it's, we're not just moms using our voice, that anyone can use their voice.
Incredible. Yay.
Yeah, I just had to shout out to him.
Yeah, we're happy to do that shout out. So, Laura, if folks want to learn more about how to get involved in Maternal Mental Health Week, the Blue Dot Project, how can they find you / the information? We'll put the link to the social media kit in the show notes. How else?
Well, we have our website, thebluedotproject.org. That is one spot you can go to, as well as on Instagram or Facebook. Facebook is just the Blue Dot Project. It's not the abbreviation for project like it is on Instagram. We're also on Twitter, which I have to say, on Twitter, we are not very active. The only time we're really active is during MMA Tube.
Well, you could go over to Mastodon and then start tooting if you wanted to.
No.
Okay, so
what is that?
Oh my God.
You guys.
What is the toot?
When Twitter started to have problems, people all en masse started to shift over to Mastodon, where you don't tweet, you toot. I'm not kidding. But
oh my gosh.
Because Twitter really is
where have I been?
It's very news based. I think a lot of reporters and that was why the blue check was so important, was people could be this is a verified source, this is verified information. And so they've all gone over to Mastodon, which all I'm picturing is a brontosaurus, which I realize is probably not, but that's
the two.
I don't know.
How did we get here? Oh my goodness. Okay.
I went off script.
Facebook and Instagram is where we're the most active. Okay. I would say Instagram's kind of the spot to be. Eventually, if we have the staffing and the ability, it would be really cool for us to finally get on the TikTok, but that's just a lot of dedication, and it's just me.
Hang on a second. You're not going to do it all?
No, because we're going to model good self-care, and we're not going to do it all. We're going to do what we have capacity for.
I'm trying.
Obviously, I'm kidding.
Exactly. You know what? I've created work hours, because it is tricky, especially when you're doing stuff on social. Because I'll see on my phone stuff come up, and I'm like, this is not my working hours. Yes. Otherwise, I feel and that's probably why I don't really use social personally very often, because I'm doing that for work, and then I'm done.
It was much more active a year ago, probably, or 2 years ago. Yeah.
Captain's log.
Yeah. Yes, I did do that. Yes. We had so much fun chatting about Maternal Mental Health Week that Laura offered to stick around and share some more of her lived experience. And who were we to turn down an offer like that? So let's hear how our conversation continued. Okay, Laura, can you tell us a little bit about how perinatal mood and anxiety disorders have touched your life personally?
Absolutely. So I've always had some level of knowledge that I deal with anxiety and depression prior to ever being in the realm of parenthood. And one kind of fun fact is 2020 Mom, which is now the Policy Center for Maternal Mental Health. The founder of that and the executive director, Joy Burkhart, I was her daughter's preschool teacher when she was
awesome.
2. So that's how I got to know Joy, was she was my room mom. And yeah, so we got really close, and she needed a graphic artist for something, and my mom's a graphic artist, so I connected them. And I don't even know, that was like a long time ago. I want to say, 12 years ago. And since then, my mom has been contracting and now is employed with them as their graphic artist. And Joy and I have been very close. We've kept in touch. And when I was pregnant, she would, check in on me, see how I was doing. I knew all the signs, symptoms, things to look for. I was fortunate enough to kind of be familiar with this world before I was in it. But that doesn't mean I didn't have my own struggles. So when I was pregnant with my daughter, I ended up having an emergency C-section after already laboring I was in the hospital, I think 3 or 4 days at that point. And after pushing for hours, I was unable to keep consciousness enough to continue pushing safely. So I had the option of either doing like the forceps or a C-section. And I knew that the forceps potentially could cause more harm to her. So I was like, let's just do the C-section. And I could feel everything. So I was knocked out completely. But because of that, I didn't have the experience that you kind of hope of like first meeting baby and like seeing baby.
It was not what you expected.
No. And my husband wasn't able to be with me either because I was being completely knocked out, and like the risk increases. So both of us weren't really there when she was born, but he did get to do some skin on skin. Like when they brought her in, he got to do that. My blood pressure dropped really low. So I was in recovery for quite a while, for a couple hours before I even was moved back into the room where she was. But I have no memory of meeting her. I have some pictures of me like coming out of it with her on me, because I know they tried to have me nursed while I was laying there. So that alone was like, I didn't feel like I failed by any means. I knew I didn't. I knew I made the right choice, but just mourning the loss of that moment of like, I was so excited. Like that just seems like such a beautiful moment to like just hear the cries, all the things. And so I didn't get that. And that was hard. And then, comments that were kind of made at the hospital while I was in recovery that I know didn't have any like ill intent, but, I had some comments made by nurses that just made me feel like, okay, maybe I did fail a little bit. So things like that just were a little hurtful. But by the time we got home to the hospital, I think I was doing as good as I could. 3 weeks after my daughter was born, my husband lost his job. And then I found out I wasn't able to go back to my job because I needed more time off. I legally required to hold my position. Now we go from 2 incomes to no income and a newborn, and things financially were tough to say the least. My husband's a type 1 diabetic, so paying for diabetic supplies and now not having health insurance is, and like just him needing his insulin, that's a life or death kind of situation on its own. And that's stressful without having our newborn. So there were those struggles. And then I could start feeling my depression. I knew that I wasn't okay, which even if I hadn't just had a baby, I probably wouldn't have been okay in that situation either.
Major
when
stress.
you go to no income and all of that stress. So I remember calling up my doctor, hoping for something like, can you prescribe me something? And he did. And I knew, okay, my husband at that point had got a new job, and we just needed to get through the 90 days.
Right. Yes.
Till he was qualified for insurance, and then I was like, okay, then I can get my meds. But every minute, hour, like I just wasn't sure if I could make it there. So, I did suffer from postpartum OCD, and which is, for me, it looked like obsessive thoughts and like invasive thoughts. Like I felt like I would get stuck in a loop. I was saying like, I have to go. I have to go. I need to leave. I need to leave. What do I do? What do I do? Like over and over and over, and like pacing with my daughter while my husband would be like back at work of just, I have to go. I have to go. I have to go. I have to go. And at one point, I started packing things. I didn't know where I was going to go. And I had a huge fear of my daughter being taken from me. So, and I didn't want to Google anything because I didn't want people to be able to see my Google history. And so I wanted to know, I genuinely was concerned if I leave with my daughter and just go, I couldn't think past that part. I didn't have a plan of like, then what? But was that kidnapping? That was what my mind was like. Could they still take her if I leave with her? And at one point I started packing up my things, and little did my brother know, he called me in that moment. And just by him calling me and, I didn't tell him what was going on. I acted like, oh yeah, things are great. Things are fine. I have my keys in my hand and the diaper bag's packed. You
didn't actually say that. That's what you omitted. Okay. Gotcha. All right.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, everything's fine, but it wasn't fine. And in that moment, just him talking to me, I remember I just sat down in my nursing chair in my daughter, because I was in her nursery, and just started talking to him and just having a few minutes of a conversation, and just quieted my mind enough that it wasn't so urgent in that moment anymore, that I had to leave in that moment. So I truly look back and think of that moment as being kind of like a saving grace moment by my brother. Yay. Which is really cool because he knows that now. And I'm like, you knew. And he struggles with mental health. And like, so we've both been there to kind of lift each other up when things have not been so
even
great.
Pre-parenthood.
Yes. So there is a history of mental health in my family. And, my brother and I've kind of made a pact of like, always like reaching out to each other, like even when things are real ugly. So I do feel like in that moment, he really was my saving grace, which is pretty cool. So as I was kind of dealing with all of that, feeling like I need to get on meds, but feeling like I can't because I can't afford it, it got to a point where I just called up the pharmacy and was like, hey, what is it going to cost me? My doctor called in this prescription. I don't have insurance. I don't think I'm going to be able to afford it. And I was right. It was way too much. I'm now like in tears on the phone with the pharmacist because I'm like, I just need hope.
Yeah.
And I don't have any hope because I don't know if I can make it 90 more days. So my pharmacist, then she was like, well, do you want me to look at the generic?
Yes. Like, yes, I do. Please.
Yes. So, that was $14. And even though we had no income, I was like, $14 can save my life.
$14.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we are going to do it. Yeah. And so I remember just crying to her and like, just knowing that like there was a little bit of hope just lifted me up, and I wanted to yell from the mountaintop. I remember having this vision of like yelling, like there's hope, like $14, people, like don't just assume that you can't afford it. Like I just kept pushing it off. Like, no, I'm not gonna be able to afford it. I can't do it. I have to figure it out on my own. And $14 saved my life. Truly. And
you're hitting on something that is like so often not discussed in this space, because we often think about like, okay, like I had a serotonin deficiency, like that was the cause of my mental health problem after my kids were born, or I had a traumatic birth and that was the cause. Like the other thing that is a cause is finances. Like when you think about the basic needs being met, like finances are part of those basic needs. Like your basic needs were not being met in the way that they needed to be in those moments. And so like you had to get really creative, like it would have never occurred to me to call the pharmacy and like ask what my options were. That's like super resourceful. So can I just say that? Like, go you? That's great.
Thank you. I've always been pretty good at being an advocate for myself, which is something I remember my mom telling me when I was a kid. And that kind of stuck with me, and trying to do that for others. So now that kind of leads right into where I am now is during that, I still was very much, I kind of call it like horse blinders when you're in it. And there was a point that I swear to you, I couldn't see more than 3 feet in front of me. and it was just like tunnel vision of nothing. And so while I was coming out of that, I had the opportunity to start working for the Blue Dot Project. And so I was very much still in it myself, and I would be making posts and memes about things that were literally me crying on the other end as a mom who like just knew like what would I need to hear, or what was I going through. Or I remember I made a post that was like late at night, and it was of a moon, and it says like hello or something. Yeah. And it was like a shout out in the middle of the night while I'm sitting there nursing my kid, wishing, please, you've been up for 3 hours and I've slept half an hour. Please go back to bed. And it was like a message to all those other mamas sitting up in the middle of the night, hoping that their kid will sleep so that they can maybe turn their mind off to sleep too. And so it was kind of therapeutic for me in some ways to be able to do that. And another thing I used was Snapchat. I used it like my journal. I never shared the stuff, but I would just like snap moments, videos of myself, of what was going on. Sometimes I would just write a little like sentence with it and save it. So I have like moments captured, and it's hard to sometimes go back at them because I can see in my eyes, like I don't look like the same person because of like how low I was. And so to me, in some ways, it's such a good reminder. Like I look back, you know, like memories will pop up like on this day 5 years ago. It's just kind of humbling in some ways for me of like, and brings me back to like why I'm doing this work. So as I was coming out of it and I'm now doing the Blue Dot Project, I had the opportunity to slowly start working on 2020 Mom stuff. 2020 Mom was also branching off and created Mom Congress, which Mom Congress is an organization on like more of a federal level of closing gaps, not just in maternal mental health, but all things that affect parenthood. So paid leave, which, you know, that could have saved us right there had we have had paid leave, extending the amount of weeks that your employers have to hang on to your job past 6 weeks.
Like if you have a C-section, you might not be able to stand fully upright at 6 weeks.
Yeah. All of those things, let alone have to return to work, regardless of what your work entails. Like it's just not okay. And then things like maternal mortality, equity, all of those things Mom Congress touches on. So I've had the opportunity to work and do stuff with Mom Congress too, which has been, I think, one of the coolest experiences. I've had the opportunity to go to DC and talk with representatives and share exactly what I'm doing right now, and just talking to reps, and doing things that was like, I always kind of assumed was like those people, you know, like other people do those things, those people who go to DC and do those things. And so I got to do it with my 11-month-old.
Oh, you took her with you?
I got to do it. And I was with her, and like, I have pictures of her sitting on like the Capitol steps with these little books that they're called the Little Feminist books. And she's like reading them. She's 11 months old. She's so stinking cute. And so it was so cool. And like, she obviously now has no memory of it, but just as she gets older, to know like that she got to do that she got to be in the room. And so the last time I went, I got to see Hamilton before the first day of Mom Congress. I know, at the Kennedy Center. It was so cool. It was so cool. And then the next day, Mom Congress starts, and I'm like introducing myself, and I'm like, you guys, we're the people in the room. Like, we're doing it. Like, it was so cool. It was so cool. So my story has now given me this opportunity to speak for those who don't have a voice, can't find their voice, didn't even know that they could have a voice. And it's just been such a rewarding thing. And I'm just so incredibly passionate about what we're doing. And to know that that drop in the bucket actually goes somewhere, means something, does something, is pretty darn cool.
That's incredible.
Pretty darn cool. Yeah. So that's kind of like in somewhat of like a large nutshell.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you brought it full circle.
That's a great nutshell.
Here's the power of storytelling. Here's how other people can tell their story. Here's my story. And it literally brought us right back to, this is why you do what you do. Like, of course.
Exactly. It's been really cool. It's been really rewarding. And I'm just so grateful to be here and to be able to do this work. And I was with friends this weekend, and they're like, Laura, tell us about what you're doing at work. Cause I don't really talk about it much. I feel uncomfortable talking about, like, bragging about myself, or that's what it feels like.
Oh, it feels like you're boasting.
It feels yucky when I'm just saying, like, this is what I'm doing. I'm not saying, like, look. So my friends were like, tell me about, like, what are you doing? And so I started, oh yeah, I get to, like, I'm on a podcast this week. And then like,
No big
get to
deal.
tell them and they're like, what are you doing? Like you get to go to DC and do all these cool things. And I'm like, yeah, it's cool. Like, yeah. And so they're like, you need to speak up and like celebrate these things with us because we don't know. Like they're like my best friends and they're like, we don't even know what you're doing. So you're not talking about it.
Feels yucky, but it's actually delicious.
It feels yucky to me. Yeah. So now I'm like trying to like be more comfortable and like just talking about the things I do and a little bit more matter of fact as opposed to like, I just don't want people to think I'm fishing for something, like it feels yucky. So
I think you might be hitting on like why for some people like telling their story feels uncomfortable because it's like, what's my motivation? Like, why am I saying this? Like, I'm not sharing it so that someone goes, oh, that like, I'm so sorry. That was so terrible. Like it is not, I'm not seeking sympathy. I'm not seeking validation even. I'm putting it out there because just in case anyone else, hey, maybe somebody else hears the story and like is able to stop before they get as far down that path of darkness.
And maybe this is the first step in healing for somebody. Maybe they've kept everything inside. Yeah. And they're like, okay, I think that I can share a little version of my story because there's a version for lots of different occasions. So maybe somebody decides that they can share a little something about their experience that they haven't spoken about before, during Maternal Mental Health Week. And they get involved with the Blue Dot Project. And that's the beginning of their healing. So there's lots of different reasons. Right? Absolutely. But we're so glad that you're doing the work that you're doing. And
thank you.
I'm sure it was never like many of us, like getting involved in this work. Your intention never was to be like a famous podcast guest or have your picture like plastered all over the place, like on the Capitol steps or anything. You are doing something that you're passionate about because you experienced something pretty crappy.
It's kind of like for me because I have to, but not because like I have to in a negative way, but like
I feel compelled.
Why else did I survive?
It is your purpose. Yes.
Yeah. It's really cool. I feel very fortunate to have found that and only can hope other people, maybe not through such trial, but can find their own passion too.
Exactly. Oh, well, thank you for sharing all of that with us. We're so happy that that you agreed to come along on this podcast and share with us. And there's one more thing that we like to do if you're willing, Laura,
called the 4th trimester round.
The 4th trimester or the lightning round or the molasses round. Because it's not actually fast. It's a really slow round because we digress. And anyway,
the questions are hard.
I'm ready for the molasses.
Emily, they are not hard questions. To me. It sounds like we have consent from Laura to jump in. Okay, Laura, we're excited that you're willing to do this. Would you please tell us, besides this podcast, what's your favorite podcast to listen to?
Okay. So anything that's Bailey Sarian, she does Dark History, which is super fun. It's all the things you didn't learn in school that you maybe should have learned. Yes, write it down. Dark History. How I found her was through her YouTube Murder Makeup, or it's Murder Makeup. Oh my gosh. Makeup Murder Mondays.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Makeup and murder.
All the murder interests. Everybody. Makeup and murder. That is cool.
She's so stinking cute. She talks like she'll have a story, a true crime story that she's talking about, and she just happens to be doing her makeup at the same time. And so
that's the one. Yeah.
No. I see.
No, she's doing like fancy.
She's just like
fancy makeup. And she's like it's not just like get ready with me. It's like I'm going out on the red carpet with this face.
Yeah, she's stunning. So that, and I love her sense of humor. She's like a millennial as well. So her references to things, I like, I get it. Yeah, I'm like, but she did some fun things, Dark History. She did one all about Lisa Frank, which was like totally fun for me to like learn like different sides of Lisa Frank.
Yeah,
I recommend it. Other podcasts I listen to, which is just more true crime, which is Rotten Mango. Rotten Mango is a little bit more graphic, like it's real.
So the whole thing, trigger warning.
They talk about some real intense things.
Trigger warning.
All of these, like warning. All of this. The molasses round on. No. And then, so there's another one called The Deck. There's one called Crime Junkie.
Mhm.
All of
Oh,
those
somebody
things.
else suggested Crime Junkies. That sounds familiar.
And The Deck is part of it, is like a spinoff of theirs. The Deck's really cool. It's, I don't know if you guys have seen these decks of cards that have missing people on them. They have them like, I don't remember. I know at one point I knew how it started, but there are these decks that have, you remember like the milk cartons that would have?
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
So it's similar. It's a deck of cards, and they have them a lot of times in prisons. So the players are playing with these decks, and sometimes things kind of come up, like if they know of something or whatever.
Whoa.
Yeah. So anyways, each time it's a different card. So it'll be like the, Ace of Spades, and then it'll be someone's name, and they'll talk about that. And sometimes they have, usually I'm not a fan of like unsolved ones.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm like, I need the bow.
I need you to wrap that up.
But these are really good. Yeah, exactly. But these are these are good.
Okay.
These are really good. Yeah.
Are you a fan of a book in your ear or a book in your hand?
In my ear, I really like it in my hand, but I'm on the computer all day working. So that's why like podcasts are kind of my books right now. And they're short and sweet episodes for the most part. So I don't have to I can just pick it up and then start a new one later. So definitely in my ear.
And are you listening to a book in particular right now, or
I'm not.
one recently? But podcasts are your that's your jam.
That's
awesome.
my jam.
There's no right answers here in the fill in the blank round.
Molasses round.
Laura is team molasses round.
Yes.
I like that. I'm noting that.
Excellent.
What is your go-to for a quick mental break, Laura?
Okay. Quick mental break. Golden Girls.
Yeah.
My daughter, who's not even 5 yet, loves it, loves watching with me. And to the point where when we were talking about a while ago, like, what's your next birthday party theme going to be? She wanted on her own Golden Girls.
Oh, yeah.
And it just changed, though. She wants cats now. So we're doing a whole nother theme. But
I was so excited.
When I was
dream almost came true.
I know. When I was looking at other things to do for a Golden Girls party, I mean, if you Google this stuff, if you look on Pinterest, it's all like 30-year-old parties, like almost like the over the hill kind of theme of like 50, 40, and
that's a missed opportunity.
Like 5-year-old.
What to do for a 5-year-old Golden Girls party? Come on, Google. Go with the program.
So I was excited, like none of her friends would know what's going on.
But the parents would love it.
Yeah, right? So maybe I can get that for her when she's a little older again or something.
Everybody goes home with a gray, curly, complimentary wig or something.
Yeah. Yes. They all get like a little purse like Sophia or something as their goodie bag.
And a sweater.
Yeah. Yeah, and a sweater.
Anyway. Oh man.
So that's it. I really like watching them. It's like happy and positive for me, and I can just like veg out. And even when I'm working, I'll have it on, and it's like a podcast where I've seen all of it so many times that I don't need to be like actively watching it. I can be listening and just.
It's feel good in the background.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite parenting hack that you would like to share with our listeners?
The first thing I thought of was just add water, which someone recently told me that, and I can't remember who, but just adding water.
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
Isn't that?
We've heard that, and that is coming up on an unaired episode. That is something.
Didn't Ellen say that?
Ellen.
Yeah.
Ellen said it.
Just add water.
Just add water.
Yes, she said that.
That's so funny. Yeah. Whenever there's like an issue or like when your kid's having a hard time, you just, okay, we're going in the bath now. We're switching up our environment or we're doing some water play or something. But my other hack is just giving yourself grace and just being like, you know what, today you're going to eat that candy bar and I'm just going to not have a battle with you because it's Sunday or whatever. And then the other one, parenting hack, is meds, which I know is not for everyone, but for me, it is helped me be a good mom. And I think it's just what I needed. So those are kind of my parenting hacks, is like grace, your meds if you need them, and water.
Yeah. Follow-up question.
Do you have a favorite way that you like to drink water? Related.
How do you take your water?
Related to water.
Ice, no ice, flavor, no flavor.
Nice, Laura.
In a cup?
In a cup.
I usually don't palm it. but I can. Um, no, I do. I really like having the liquid IV in it, and I'll use like a quarter of a pack to like a full 20 ounces of water, and just use the same pack throughout the day. So, but it gets me. I'll actually drink a lot more if I have a little bit of flavor.
little flavor in there. Do you have a favorite flavor? Sorry, another follow-up question off script.
I like strawberry. That's like classic. Yeah. That's good. But they also have watermelon, which is tasty. And they have an immune one that I actually don't mind. That's like an orange.
I feel like water is a great metaphor for like parenting shame. Like we shame ourselves for not drinking enough. We shame ourselves for like needing flavor in it in order to drink it. And I'm like, listen, it's about getting access to water. Like it's about just doing the thing, right? So like
however you like
instead of feeling guilty about how you take your water or that you want flavor in it or that you don't like ice or that you really, really like ice or that you need a straw, like who cares?
We all prefer it a different way. Yeah.
Yeah. Just get it in.
Just get the water in.
Yep.
Just drink. Yeah. Somehow get the water. Now I'm thirsty.
I know, me too, but I'm drinking coffee. I'm going to have to double down on the water later.
Dang it. I'm all out. I'm all out. Okay.
Double fisting iced coffee and water. Is that what's happening there?
Yep. Coffee and water.
I like it. Yeah. I like it. What is one way today, Laura, that you'll show yourself a little radical love? And radical, don't be scared by the word radical. I might need to start omitting that because it's scaring people. But I just think love is radical.
Yeah. Well, I kind of feel like this has been like really fun and like talking to moms, I feel like this is kind of that for me.
We're
today.
happy to be radical with you.
And my coffee. Yeah. I feel like this is it. This is kind of my answer.
Boom.
So done.
Friends. Yes. I like it. Awesome. Well, Laura, if folks want to get a hold of you, or are they able to do that? Do you have like if they reach out to you on social media, or what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Okay. There's a few ways you can. So I am on social, but my account's private. And a lot of times I don't always like add people if I don't know them.
Yeah. Totally understandable.
I mean, you can try reaching out I don't care. Like if you want to message me or whatever, it's One Sun Ray, but it's spelled out ONE. Sun and then Ray's RAE. That's my maiden name. One Sun Ray and then 25.
25. And that's like on Instagram?
Yeah. Okay. And then you can email me at laurak@postpartum.net.
That probably would be the best way.
That would be the first way I would recommend. But you're welcome to like try to stalk my private page. On this.
But don't be offended if Laura doesn't respond. Yeah,
you could just be like, I heard you on the podcast. And I'll be like, oh, cool.
I mean, actually thinking about it, like someone could go and find the Blue Dot Project and send a private message to Blue Dot Project, right?
Yes.
Like that's another way to get to you. And
guess what? It'll also be Laura.
It will be me. But I might act like I usually try to talk like we at the Blue Dot Project when it's really so far.
You guys are in on a little
secret,
little secret info here. All you podcast listeners.
I mean,
we means Laura.
There's a lot of times where like I really do have to go like pause and ask. Most of the time when I say like we will get back to you, it's because I need to find.
You are part of a team too. Yeah.
There are people like you guys that I can, especially with the climate.
We're here.
Like, I don't know what's happening now.
Awesome. Well, great. We will put links to your contact information and all the things that we talked about. I'll try to make sure I get all the links in there in our show notes for people to check out. And we're so excited to be involved with Maternal Mental Health Week, May 1st through 7th, 2023. But that's also, this is also something that people can participate in all year. So if it's March or
March 8th,
if it's
right?
May 8th,
I mean,
you can still participate. Or March 8th for that matter. Whatever.
The 8th of any day, the 8th of any month is a great.
8 is great.
8 is great.
Laura, thank you so much for being on here. We have thoroughly enjoyed our time with you. And you know what? I have to say, this hour has felt like radical love for me too. So thanks so much for being here. We've loved it.
Thank you guys. I really enjoyed it too. It's been fun.
Thanks for tuning in to the I Am One podcast. Check out today's show notes where we'll drop links to all the important things that we mentioned in this episode. Please consider sharing about our show on social media and following and rating our show wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. It only takes a minute of your time and, well, that'll help with our collective mission of bringing resources and local support to folks worldwide. From everyone here at PSI, thanks again for listening.